Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. I'm so glad you could join us again today. My guest this time for you is coming from outside the home services industry. I love bringing guests that challenge us to think outside the norm, outside the normal area of the profit leaks that we've been discovering and exploring, and look in different parts of your business. So my guest today is Steven Shapiro. He is the founder, I guess I'm going to say, or the person who has brought to you what we call personality poker. And so I'm going to let Steven come in and tell us a tiny little bit about himself. All of his information will be in our show notes, so you'll be able to pick it up there. But Steven, what is this personality poker? And before you roll, in full disclosure, I met Steven at a Profit First event, and he blew us away with personality poker. So Steven, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. And I love that you have people from different industries and outside the industry, because I've been in the innovation space for about 30 years now. And one of the things that I strongly believe is that expertise is often the enemy of innovation, because we basically do what everybody else has done, but we're not really inventing or creating new practices that might be good that somebody else has done in a different industry completely. So I love that you do that. And so personality poker is really around that same concept of how do we bring divergent points of view, but this one is specifically around personalities. So just to step back for a moment, when I was at Accenture, a large management consulting firm, I was leading a 20,000 person innovation practice. And one of the things that I realized is that I made an assumption which was incorrect. And my assumption was there were some people who were innovative, and then there's the rest of the world. And what I quickly discovered is innovation isn't a personality, it is a process. And innovation requires a lot of different personalities to come together in the right way to be most effective. So when I realized that, I created personality poker about 20 years ago. And basically what it is, it's a deck of cards. And on the deck of cards, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, they are cards with suits, colors, and numbers, like regular poker cards, but they also have words on them. So this one says overachiever, and this one says logical. And so we have 52 cards, 52 words. And the general idea of the game is for us to better understand how we contribute to the success of a team, how we detract from the success of a team, and probably most importantly is who we need to partner with that we most likely would not want to work with because we might find them annoying, but they're the people we have to do business with. So that's the general idea of how the game was birthed and the goal of playing the game.
And Steven, I think one of the things that really caught me off guard when we played it at the Profit First Mastery event was that partnering up, realizing that I'm strong in this area, but I'm not strong over here. So I need to intentionally seek out that other person. And together we can accomplish more than either one of us could by ourselves. That to me was a big aha moment from your presentation.
And that to me is really the key message is who we are not is quite often more important to understand than who we are. Because who we are not, those are going to represent our blind spots. They're the areas of opportunity that we have. And we need to seek out people who are going to complement our hand, people who are going to fill in the blanks from what we have. And so when we play personality poker, basically the way it works is everybody gets 5 cards. And people trade cards, and the goal of the game is to get 5 cards where the words best describe how you see yourself. And once you have 5 cards you like, you also have a chance to gift cards to others so they can see how they're perceived, which to me is always the most fun part. But the fascinating part is when you have a group, 95% of the people will be missing a suit from their hand, and that suit represents the person they need to find, the person they need to collaborate with. So when you're building a team, we tend to, the expression has always been opposites attract. The reality is scientific evidence tells us exactly the opposites. Opposites don't attract, they detract. We want to be with people who are similar to us. And therefore, when we're building our organizations, when we're building our companies, we tend to surround ourselves with people who are like us, who think like us, who share the same thought process. But that's going to kill innovation because we need to have all the different styles working together collaboratively.
I just want to make a comment as we had some, I'm going to use the word small group type discussion after you were finished with your presentation. One of the thoughts that came out is as we had our 5 cards of how we thought they described us, the cards that other people brought to us were considerably different. And we decided as a group, it had to do with when we come together in this professional environment, that we see each other differently in this environment than we would see each other if we worked together on a day-to-day close type relationship. And it was kind of, we were laughing at how different those 2 sets of cards ended up being. And it was just it was a very interesting topic of discussion at our table.
And that's probably one of the things I enjoy most about personality poker is the gifting. And if you do this with people that are on your team, so let's say you have a team of 6 people, and everybody gifts cards to other people, and you have conversations around, well, why did I give you the cheerleader card? Or why did I give you the bossy card, which is the most frequently gifted card? You have some great stories, and you get to learn a lot about yourself in a way that you wouldn't otherwise learn. And so just because somebody thinks you are a particular way doesn't mean that's who you are. We take on different personas in different environments for different reasons. And that's the beauty of it is if you go beyond just the label and start talking about the stories behind it, why did I give you the creative card? Why do I think you're visionary? What did you do on a project that helped us become, better collaborators? That's where the real insights come from, is the stories, and the cards really are more of a catalyst for conversation rather than the answer.
I know I found it so interesting because people would gift you with the card, and part of our conversation centered around, do we have the courage to step into what that card said? Because sometimes that card was quite a bit different than how we saw ourselves.
Yes.
In a positive way, not so much in the negative side, but in the positive side. Are we willing to step into that and own it?
The way you just described it is beautiful. I mean, and I think it's true, is a lot of times people, especially if they're not people that we're surrounded by all the time, but we have shorter interactions with, they can see things about us that others can't, because sometimes when you're with people on a daily basis, they start building up a lot of assumptions about you and start, dealing with who you were in a particular environment. But when people meet you fresh, you're a blank sheet. And so they can see you in some respects, sometimes better than the way others see you. And I love what you said, just sort of like living into that. Like, if somebody's, some people might be the cheerleader. Great. Okay. Well, if you're the cheerleader, what is it about me that people felt that I was that energetic force that helped people celebrate their successes? And yeah, why not grow into that?
Yeah. So we all left feeling challenged on taking on
Good.
some of these roles that we would not necessarily have thought of ourselves. Coming from a group of accountants, bookkeepers, coaches type of people, we think of ourselves in a different mindset than maybe how we come across to the world. Because I know in my own life, my family sees me as this way. The public sees me completely different over here as an authority, a celebrity, an expert in my topic, but my family does not see me that way. I'm just mom or aunt or sister or grandma or whatever. And it is funny how you're seen so different in different environments. And how can we take that and do something with it and grow the organization that we're with, or what the brand we're trying to build, or whatever that might be?
Well, there's something really powerful in what you're saying, is in a lot of cases, who we are at home is a more natural expression of who we are at our core versus who we are at work. And the reason for this is that when we look at our strong suit, so that's basically the whole purpose of the game, is to figure out what your strong suit is so that your team can play with a full deck. So your strong suit typically comes from a couple of different places. One is it's innate. It's who you are. It's just like when you're free to be you 100%, and you don't have to worry about being judged or evaluated or criticized or analyzed. That's who you are. So that's your innate strong suit. But some people have learned strong suits. And learned strong suits are basically those which we became good at in order to become successful at work, to write books, to become an accountant, all these different things, and to be perceived in the marketplace. Now, here's the fascinating thing that I found is that when we live our innate strong suits, we have more energy and more power than when we live our learned strong suits. So we can be good at a lot of things. And this is not a strengths-based test. It is actually what it is that you are naturally inclined to be. And so if we become good at something in order to become successful, but it isn't who we are, in many cases, it robs us of our energy. So it's always fun to play this with different groups because you'll get different answers. And sometimes you might see one group is actually a better reflection of who you know yourself to be rather than maybe who you've become.
I know, Stephen, when we were playing with the cards, there's cards in here that I'd be proud to own the title. I just opened my deck up and here's one that says organized, disciplined. Like I'd be proud to own that title. But then if I flip through these cards a little bit further, here comes critical. Here comes skeptical. I'm not sure if I want to own those. Know-it-all. You got some pretty powerful cards in here. But then here's sociable, rigid. I'm not sure if I want to own that one. Scattered. I mean, tell us how those all come into play and how we can use them to become better.
Sure. So there are, like a regular deck of cards, suits, colors, numbers. And in personality poker, the suits have meaning, the colors have meaning, and the numbers have meaning. So what you're referring to here are the numbers, and there's 3 categories of numbers. So there are the cards which are 2, 3, 4 cards. This is the scattered, disorganized cards. These are your strong suit on steroids. And these are the things which sort of represent when you become too much of your strong suit, being bossy, being rigid, being organized, methodical, systematic. Those are great. Those are attributes that many people would want to have, but being anal retentive or rigid, maybe not so much. And people want to get rid of those 2, 3, 4 cards because they don't like that shadow side. But the reality is sometimes that shadow side gives us some great insights. So for example, the diamonds in personality poker are the ones who tend to be more creative, more visionary. But the downside of being that is we can be, because I'm a diamond, we can be disorganized and scattered. Now, I could say, no, I'm not going to, I don't want to embrace being scattered. I don't want to. What's nice about doing this video like this is you only get to see the part of my studio that I want you to see. What's behind the scenes? It's not so pretty. It's a little bit of a mess, and I've owned it. I've owned being disorganized because it is if I try to become organized, it actually tends to squash my creativity. And I would say, like the anal retentive card, the 3 of clubs. Clubs are the methodical people. And you might say, I don't want to be anal retentive. That's a bad thing. But look, the difference between a Timex and a Rolex is going to be that 3 of clubs anal retentive card. We need people who are so obsessed with those details and perfection that if we don't have them, flaws creep in. And so embracing that part of you can actually be a gift. But I think the key thing is you can't be great at everything. So I know for me as a diamond, I am disorganized, which means the structured, the organized cards, absolutely not me. So I know when I have my deck of cards, when I have my hand, the clubs, the organized people are the ones I need because it's not me. And if I don't have a suit in my hand, that doesn't mean I should learn to become better at it because that's going to rob me of my energy. What I should be doing is finding the people who have clubs in their hand and we find a partnership together. That to me is always the key.
I'm laughing inside because I hear my staff going all the time, this client is so disorganized. They can never get their stuff into me on time. I just wish that they could get their stuff to me in the right order, in the right time, and I didn't have to bug them for it. And I'm always telling them, ladies, if they could do all that, you wouldn't have a job. They need us and we need them because without it, we'd be sitting here twiddling our thumbs, wondering what we're going to do today. And instead, we're able to create that calmness and that order and that type of thing out of their somewhat chaotic lives and
Yes.
shadow them on the other side of things. And hopefully not
Well,
drive
and
them crazy with our wanting things to be orderly.
well, and that's a really important point too, is again, so there's who we are, and then there's who others are. And what we need to understand is our clients and our customers aren't going to be like us. And if we treat them the way we are, we're going to create stress for them. We're going to create situations that aren't natural. And so if you can, with your clients, better understand who they are as individuals and speak to them in their language and meet them where they are, that, look, it might be extra work on your part, but that's your job as the service provider, is to do everything you possibly can to make it easy for the life of your clients and customers. So if you understand that somebody's disorganized, well, what is the best way to serve someone like that by taking some of the work off of their plate? Maybe it costs them a little more, but I know, like, when I work with, bookkeeper, anybody who can take my disorganized mess and turn it into something organized is worth a premium to me. So it's a value add for my situation.
So I'm going to spin this around to the home service industry now. They work with all kinds of people. Is there any way they can get some sort of an idea up front as to what type of a card this person would be before they dig in to start working a job with them?
That's a great question. And I find sometimes, you're not going to break out a deck of personality poker cards when you're working with a client or customer. That would be a little weird. But you can get some cues, like even if you just ask them some open-ended questions, like, what are you working on? And again, it's going to be different from company to company, what you provide. But even just some open-ended questions, you'll get to see based on their responses. You get a chance to, based on their energy. Like, some people be a higher energy. Okay, well, that tells you in personality poker, they'd be a higher number. 10, Jack, Queen, King, or Ace are the ones who tend to be a little more energetic. So that gives us a little bit of a clue as to who they might be. If when they talk about things, it's very structured, very methodical in their conversation, they could be more of a club. Or if it sounds like they're asking a lot of questions about the facts, well, what's going to happen here? If they sound a little skeptical, well, that means they're probably a spade, that analytical. I want the facts and the data. So when they ask questions or you ask questions, you can now start to hear what suits they might be and be able to respond appropriately. So you want to interact with them the way they want to be treated, not the way you are.
Wow. That's a very mind-blowing statement, what you just said. To interact with them the way they want to be treated, not necessarily the way that you are wired. And I think of all of us running our businesses, working with our employees, working with our customers, working with our vendors. We touch so many people throughout the course of a day or a week or a month or a year. And the thought of trying to work with each of them the way they want to be worked with makes me tired. Just because I can see the work that would take. But I bet you've got some studies that show that it is very much worthwhile to put in that effort and be able to get better results for people.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at it from each step of the process, so the first step is going to be getting to know you, as a service provider. You're going to be, people are going to have questions, and you want to answer them, again, what they're interested in, what they care about, and put personalities aside for the moment. It's good customer service to be able to serve people the way they want to be served. And it can actually be, to me, a fun exploration to understanding what they are. So if, let's say, somebody seems a little skeptical and they're asking a lot of different questions, instead of being annoyed by it, if you're a person who doesn't really, you just want to get the job done, and they're asking all these fact-based questions, treat it as a game or something that allows you to be able to, okay, well, great. I'm gonna win this person over by giving every piece of data they could possibly want. And they're gonna have so much data that they're gonna realize they can't work with anyone else because I understand them and their needs better than anyone else in the world. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we need to do during sales, is basically understand someone's pain in a way that nobody else can. And if we can solve that pain the way they want it solved, you'll be the only one they want to work with.
That's amazing. All from being aware of how somebody is naturally wired.
Yes.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about what some other insights can you pick up from these magical cards?
So I'll give you a couple of other ways to play the game. One thing which I didn't go through really is just the suits. So let me just explain the suits real quickly. So the suits are spades. They're the analytical ones, the ones who like to dig for data. The diamonds, they're the multifaceted ones. They tend to be a little more creative, a little more scattered. The clubs, they like to plan the work and work the plan. They're very organized and goal-oriented. And the hearts are about engaging the hearts and minds of people. They're into relationships and people. And so when you understand that and you build your team, the first thing that's really fascinating, you might jump to the conclusion that, well, if I'm a diamond, I should work with a club and life is going to be great. And the reality is that's actually not it, because what happens is the people that are opposite us, the people who are different than us, often annoy us. Can I tell just a quick story
Sure.
that will illustrate this? I love this story and it also highlights the reason why we want to work with people who aren't just like us. So when I was at Accenture, I had a very large budget. I had a $30 million budget for a program we were running. And large budget, wanted a co-leader. I'm a diamond and a heart combination, which means I'm creative and I like people. So my co-leader was John, a diamond and a heart. We got along great. People loved working with us. And at the end of the project, there were three things I can say without a doubt. One is we developed more new, novel, creative ideas than anyone else. That was the diamond in us. Everybody in the project had a blast because we made sure of it. That was the heart in us. And the third thing I can say, it was the biggest waste of $30 million ever in an organization, because we were so focused on fun and creativity, we forgot we had to deliver. So the next project, my budget was cut from 30 million to 6 million. And I didn't get my yeah, that's a big reduction. And I didn't get to choose my co-leader. So they gave me this guy, Ray, and he was a self-proclaimed anal retentive program manager. And he drove me crazy. Like after 3 weeks, I thought, I will not survive this project. So I took Ray off site. We went to a restaurant. I said, Ray, I got to tell you, I don't like you. And he said, I don't like you either, Steve. And I'm like, okay, but here's the thing, Ray, I need you. I had a budget that was 5 times larger and I failed miserably. And the reason is we didn't deliver. So we need to figure out, A, how we're going to drive each other crazy so we can at least be prepared for it, but figure out how can we work together in a way that plays to each of our strong suits. And we talked for hours and strategized and understood and created a language for us to be able to talk. And I will say that project, again, one with a budget that was significantly less than the other project, we created something that's maybe one of the greatest programs I've ever been involved with. And it was because Ray and I figured out how to work together. So I always say the person you like the least is the person you need the most. But it's not about diversity on your team. It's about appreciating what each person brings to the table. And that is just such an important and powerful concept that most people don't get when they're trying to build divergent teams. It's not just about, well, I've got one spade, one diamond, one heart, and one club. That creates chaos. It's like, how do we work together in a systematic way that gets the most value from every person so we are each appreciated for our contributions and we know how to collaborate?
I think that appreciation is a big missing piece, because begrudgingly, okay, we'll work together. And you could have, done this whole back and forth, tit for tat throughout the whole project and not had a good ending. But because you figured out how to work together, that's major. And I think of how many teams out there, whether it be a home service business or any kind of a business, they've not really figured out how to work together. Mary in accounting, all she does is bug me for my receipts. Would that woman just get off my back and leave me alone? And then here comes Diane, my accountant, and she wants that whole checklist filled out. What does she think? I got all this time in the world? Yes, I can see how we just rub each other raw until we figure out that we really can work together, and that getting that checklist filled out is not really that awful. This takes about 2 minutes to do if you'll sit down and do it. But on the flip side, maybe you can share a creative idea with Mary and Diane, who are so busy trying to get the facts and figures from you so that they can do that part of the work. I think we, as those that other side, tend to forget we need some creativity as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Love that. I mean, that's really the whole point of this, is how do we play with a full deck? So each person is playing to their strong suit, but we've got a team where you have all the different perspectives and personalities. Then what you want to do is you want to make sure you deal out the work, which also means that everybody doesn't do everything. You figure out, okay, well, I'm great at this, so I'm going to put my center of gravity. The time that I spend will be on the things which I excel at, and you'll spend the time on the things that you excel at. But then the last thing is to always recognize that sometimes we need to shuffle the deck, because again, that expertise can be the enemy of innovation. Well, when we know too much about our particular personality and approach, we might make a lot of assumptions. And so there's a systematic approach for being able to play to your strong suit, play with the full deck, deal out the work, shuffle the deck. And once you do all that, now you have a high performing innovation team that's really going to make a huge impact for your organization.
Wow. You just said a mouthful there. I'm thinking, oh no, we got to shuffle the deck too.
Shuffle the deck. Yes, indeed. Well, because I think it's really important for people to understand that if we just, like, let's take a larger organization. When I work with a major oil company, for example, we played personality poker. And what we found was in the audience, we had 25% of the people were spades, 25% of the people were diamonds, 25% of the people were hearts, and 25% of the people were clubs. So somebody asked me, he's like, hey, we've got a perfect balance. We're awesome, right? I said, okay, I'm just curious. For those of you who are hearts, how many of you are in the HR department or something related to that? And pretty much 100% of the hands were raised that were the hearts. And I said, okay, well, the ones who were the spades, how many of you were in the R&D department? You're the PhDs developing new technologies. And again, the same hands. So what they realized was, yeah, they had a balance, but they never shuffled the deck. The people in R&D never talked to the people in HR, except if there was like a problem and they were complaining about somebody. But to actually collaboratively bring them together on a team, on a project, to be able to work together side by side, that's not something they ever did. That's not playing with a full deck. That's just having a bunch of different decks that are all separated. So there's a lot of nuances to this, as I'm sure you can tell.
Wow, this is deeper than I thought it was going to go. But thank you for clarifying that. I'm thinking in my head, oh my goodness, how do you even do that? But to pull them onto a team together, and I'm sure they're all sitting there initially is like, I don't even know what to say because they've never talked to each other.
It's true. And a very simple thing to do is each person, when you look at your hand, again, look at the suits that you're missing. So let's say typically the way we draw it, it's a grid, it's a quadrant. And so the spades are opposite of the hearts. The spades are about, the mind, the thought. The hearts are about the people and the relationships. So they tend to be opposite sides. So if you think about who you tend to turn to when you've got a problem, when you want to do some brainstorming, we tend to turn to somebody who's like us. Well, what I encourage people to do is just say, okay, look, if you're a spade, next time you run into a problem, talk to a heart. They're going to have a different perspective, a different lens on the problem than you would have, and they will be able to provide a different perspective. It can be as simple as that, as just when you run into a problem, don't go to the people you always go to. Find someone else who might have a different viewpoint. There's other things you can do, but that to me is sort of the easiest that you could start right away.
So that means we can do that in a small company. We don't need to have a big 30, 40, 50, 60 person company. We can do this in a company of 4 or 5.
And it doesn't have to be even people inside the company. So
Okay.
a lot of times, look, I'm a one-person company. Who do I talk to myself a lot, But there are times when, okay, I'm working on something. I need to find a club. Who's going to be the person? So I've got a team of people who help me stay organized. They help me stay organized primarily through technology, but there's a whole process that I've bought into that allows me to stay organized without me having to be organized. And so I'm going to find the people or the technologies that allow me to play with a full deck, even as a one-person company.
I'm involved in another company called Profit Plus Academy, which is 3 other Profit First master members. And I love when the 4 of us hop on a Zoom call to flesh out a new idea, because one of our members is so creative. And I look at her in awe, because that's not me. I'm the orderly one. I take the thought she comes up with and I start turning them into outlines or that type of thing. She goes, I just love that you do that. I said, just don't talk too fast so I can get it down. But we complement each other that way. And I'm just in awe of her creativity and wish I had more of that. So I have to hang out with creative people because I'm not blessed in that. I have a little bit, but not enough to really, put together a program or a platform of any sort. But as long as I can find those kind of people, they will give me the sparks that I need to be able to build what I'm trying to build.
Yeah. I love that. Look, we're all blessed in different ways. We all have different gifts, especially those innate gifts. And if everything, all of our strong suits become learned strong suits, like let's just say that you decided, I'm going to be creative and I'm going to take all the creativity classes and I'm going to go to Creativity University, and you're going to be exhausted because it's a different way of thinking. You have to be wired differently to want to do that. So why would you want to go do that when you can find people who are naturally good at it? So surround yourself with the people who complement you. I mean, I like people who compliment me with an I, but I'm actually talking about compliment with an E, So people who balance our hand and help us play with a full deck. And again, it doesn't have to be a person. It could be technology. It could be a process that we adopt that allows us to do certain things that we couldn't do before. And they don't have to be inside the company. They can be contractors. They can be friends. They can be anybody.
Well, they could be members of a mastermind group or a coaching group or any of those kinds of places that are safe places where you can share your thoughts and your dreams and your goals and have other people that are gifted in different areas than you are to be able to help you spin those out a little bit.
100%. 100%.
Wow, this is cool. What else can you share with us about personality poker?
So I'll give you a couple of other things to think about. So we've talked very heavily about people having personalities, suits, clubs, the clubs, spades, hearts, and diamonds. But teams and companies have personalities.
Really?
So, yeah. So, and basically, it's what we would call culture. The culture is what gets valued, not so much your values, but what gets valued. And so, what's important to recognize is that depending on what is the predominant value or what gets valued most in your company is going to determine what you tend to focus on. So, for example, I would guess, this is my guess, your organization is probably a club dominant culture. It doesn't mean you have all clubs in your team, but what it means is you value getting things done when it's supposed to be done, getting it done right with no errors, being able to be profitable. Those are all the things which would be club dominant terms. Now, as a diamond, if I worked with you as a creative diamond, we would need to make sure that I don't feel ostracized. I don't feel like I'm not part of the team because I'm not those things. I bring something to the table, but I'm not those parts of the dominant culture. So how do we recognize and reward people and value people who aren't part of the culture or part of the dominant culture? And every organization is going to be a little different, like nonprofits often are hearts. The pharmaceutical companies and NASA, they're very spade dominant. They value the intellect and the PhDs. When I work with ad agencies and marketing companies, they tend to be very creative diamond. But we need to have all the different people. And if we sort of focus too much on one of those suits as our culture, then we lose out and we can't attract or retain the people that we need to.
So how do you reach out to them and make sure that they feel like they're an important part of your team?
Well, it comes down to a conversation. And so let's say we were on the team together and I was being evaluated the way everyone else is being evaluated, things being done on time, on budget, profitable. And, none of those words that I just used are of any interest to me personally. What I like is we did something cool, novel, different. We had a great time getting there. It was a lot of fun. Those are the things which I value. And so when it comes time for, I don't know if you do formal evaluations or anything like that, but whatever you do to recognize, reward, praise people, make sure you do it the way they want it, not the way you've got a one size fits all based on the culture. So I'd love for you to say, if you said to me, Steve, you are a disorganized mess, but man, you came up with some really cool ideas that helped us improve the company in ways we just never thought of, I'd feel seen. If you said you were on time, on budget, I'd be like, I don't care. That's not important to me. So it really just recognizing and understanding the way people want to be viewed and valued. And then,
I think I lost you there for a second, Steve.
am I still here?
Yep,
Hello?
now you're back.
Okay. Well, glad I'm back and I didn't go anywhere. So I just say that, the key is for us to recognize that we want to appreciate, value, and validate people the way they want to be validated, not the way that we as an individual or as a company. Like in larger companies, it gets there's a dominant culture, like publicly traded companies, large companies. Mm-hmm. It's all about quarterly earnings. What's going to be the culture? It's a club culture. So the diamonds, which are the opposite, feel like they don't fit in. They don't feel like they belong. But how can you validate somebody who might be different so that they feel like they belong?
Wow. Thank you for unpacking that a little bit more for me. Hey, Steven, on every one of my podcast interviews, I always throw a zinger question in. You ready for it?
I hope so.
So my zinger question for you is, and I got to get my little bucket over here, is what is a unique, here we go, one of those words, profit leak that you have seen with companies that could possibly be plugged or at least slowed down from a gush to a trickle based on understanding these personality types?
I think everything we talked about is so critical. If you have too many people of the same suit, that's going to be a profit leak. So for example, if you're a company that has spades, clubs, and hearts, but you don't have any diamonds, you might be successful today, but without that creative energy, you may not be successful tomorrow. And so the best way to plug that profit leak is to recognize, value, attract, retain, and motivate and compensate everybody the way they want to be compensated and valued, and make sure that you build these high-performing teams. So I think that's just, when you have a high-performing team, everything falls into place nicely. And profitability will be a natural extension of that.
I get to put some money in our little profit leak bucket. Yoo-hoo! As we plug another profit leak. And I'm going to pivot that just slightly, that if we're not building that well-rounded team and we're not interacting and validating those who are different from us, we probably have a high turnover rate in our company. And when we have a high turnover rate, we know what that does to profits. We're constantly training and retraining and firing and hiring, and the cycle just goes on and on and on. And that can be very, very costly and ultimately can kill a profit line, even if you're doing everything else right with that revolving door of your team. Well, Steven, as we were talking prior to going live with this, you mentioned you've got a new book that you've just had come out. If you would just quickly, like a 30-second minute recap, and then I think we're going to book a second session where we dig into your new book, but let's just do a teaser for it for our audience.
Sure. So we're coming out of an environment, certainly during the pandemic, even prior to it, but more, it got exacerbated during the pandemic, of pivoting. You use that word, we're going to pivot. So we've done a lot of pivoting. We've done a lot of spinning and changing direction. And what's happened though is we've been spinning around in circles that we've lost clarity on what matters to our organizations. And we've created stress and we've created an unproductive work environment. So this will explain why everything's purple. This is the new book. It's called Pivotal, not pivoting, Pivotal. And Pivotal, the subtitle is Creating Stability in an Uncertain World. And basically, the premise of the book is we're so focused on what's going to be next and new that we don't focus on what's now. We're so focused on what should change inside of our organizations that we don't spend enough time to think about what shouldn't change, what's going to stand the test of time, what's timeless. And if we can start investing in what we do great now and build the right capabilities, we can leverage those in the future without having to pivot. So it really is a way of creating a stable environment, a foundation for your organization that will stand the test of time.
Wow, thank you. I am looking forward to having you come back on and we'll dig into your book. I wanted to tease it just in case anybody would like to pick up a copy of it and read it before we actually get back onto the air and recording another episode. But here again, Pivotal, and I'm going to assume it's available on Amazon or
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, yeah, wherever
okay.
you buy your books.
Or how about your own website?
Probably better to buy it through a retail place
Okay.
unless you want bulk orders, in which case then you can come to me.
Okay. And if somebody's looking for their own deck of personality poker, where should they go to get that, Stephen?
Personalitypoker.com. You can buy the whole system there, get the decks, all the training materials and videos, and all the other goodies you need to get started.
All right. And I'll say that I bought my deck. I have not sat down and done the training yet. So I need to get in and dig into that a little more so I can explore it with my own team, as well as some of my clients and my coaching clients as well. So thank you so much,
Excellent.
Stephen, for joining us. I'm looking forward to part 2 where we dig into your new book and learn a little bit more about Steven Shapiro and all the amazing things that he has to bring to us.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, me too. We're going to call that a wrap of the Profitable Home Services podcast. Please join us for our next episode as we bring you another amazing guest. Thank you so much. Have a profitable day.